Hi everyone. Okay, so I'm making a video about how I got all A stars at IGCSE because I thought it might help some people, because I found this kind of useful when I was doing my GCSEs. I would watch similar videos, so I thought maybe it'll help some people, and also it's just kind of nice to reflect on it because it's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. So yeah, so I'm just gonna go through what I studied, and obviously not everyone watching this is gonna have done the same subjects, so some advice might not be necessarily that helpful to you, but I think in general you'll be able to take something worthwhile from the advice that I'll give. So I'm first of all just gonna go through my personal experience and my journey throughout IGCSE, and how I might have changed my study habits and stuff like that, the subjects I took, and then I'll go into more general exam, revision advice for any subject. Okay, so I'm gonna show proof because I just want to clarify that this is real and I did achieve these grades. And another thing is that I genuinely never thought that I would have gotten all A stars. I don't remember a time where in year 10 especially where I was thinking it's not that I never wanted it, it's nice to think about oh, I'm gonna get all A stars, but I never really intentionally was putting it on myself to get all A stars in year 10. In year 11, maybe towards exams, I kind of was hoping for it, but I honestly then didn't even really expect it, because also another thing I'm going to discuss is my predicted exam grades in year 10 were not all A stars at all. I think there were maybe 2 or 3 A stars, and then there was some C's and B's, So, okay, anyway, I'm going to show my evidence of my grades. So I'm just going to show the grade part because I don't know if I'm allowed to really show it. Okay, so for economics, English language, English literature, geography, maths, and Spanish, I did all of CIE board GCSE, so Cambridge GCSE. So those are the 6. For sciences and another subject I did, which was art, graphics, graphic communication, I think it was called. I honestly don't even remember what it was called. I did Edexcel, GCSE, Pearson, whatever it is. So these ones are from 1 to 9, or whatever it is, 1 to 9, and I got 9s for sciences. So I did triple science, so this is for biochem and physics. This is for biology, chemistry, and physics. And then finally we have art, which I got an 8 in. I predicted a 5 for most of year 10 from what I remember, and then I think it started to go to a 6, and I was hoping for a 7 in the actual final exam, which obviously is not an A star, and I would have been happy with a 7, but I got an 8 somehow. The 8th grade. The 8th. I know my nails are ugly, so don't hate me for that. Okay, so that's all the evidence, just so I'm not scamming people from this video. Okay, this is from term 2 of year 10. I'm just going to discuss my journey from year 10, from when I started IGCSE. So when I started IGCSE, I was quite already someone who did want to put effort into my grades, and I would try my best, I would never really slack on stuff from what I remember. Obviously I wasn't really tough on myself, because when you're in year 10, and also I played sports, so I wasn't too just academic, and I was quite relaxed in some ways, but I obviously did want to do well, and when I didn't do well I would want to improve. So I wasn't I was hardworking enough, but definitely not as much as I was as time went on. This is my term 2 report 2017, I think, of year 10. Let's see. So for art, okay, we have attainment grade and target grade. So attainment is what you have. So this is what I had in art, graphic communication. I had a 5, Biology I had a 7, Chemistry I had a 7, Econ I had an A star, English language and English literature I had B's, Geography I had an A, Maths I had an A, Physics I had a 6, and Spanish I had a B. So obviously these are not bad grades, obviously, and I don't think I was mad about these grades at the time. I was just like, well, I'm doing decently, so it's okay. So my target grades, on the other hand, so this is like what I'm hoping to get if I like push, you know, and work towards something. This was like this is what I could get in the final exam if I worked hard throughout the rest of the year, type of thing. So for art, my target, if I worked hard, would be a 7. So in other words, like in the exam, I could get a 7. Biology, I could get a 7. Chemistry, an A. Economics, an A star. English language, A. English literature, A. Geography, A star. Mathematics, A star. Physics, 6. Spanish, I got like a target grade of an A star. So my target grades are kind of ranging A star and A. So I'm happy with this at the time. Like I'm like not putting pressure on myself to get A stars at all. Like I don't remember ever pushing for it, and obviously I would aspire to it, but I wasn't really like, oh, I have to. I remember ever being like really worried, unless it was a subject where I already had an A star. If I had an A in a subject, I wouldn't be too stressed about an A star. Like an A, I'd be happy with an A, you know. Okay, so year 10, I'm not too stressed. I'm getting decent grades, like ranging from C's to A stars, but only one C, but mostly B, A stars. Year 10 goes on, and I'm just kind of not really worried about IGCSEs too much at that time. But then when it gets to the end of year 10, I kind of am like, okay, like we're having exams soon, so this is kind of more serious. So then my priorities started to shift as we moved closer to exams, and when we would have mocks, I would definitely try my best in mocks, which is really important to a good extent. Like I work hard, but I didn't go crazy. Like I didn't neglect everything else in year 10. In year 11, I did like, okay, I'll get onto it honestly. Okay. Another thing is just to mention, I did have one tutor for maths because I needed someone to push me to actually do the past papers, and also because maths is honestly the only way I revise is past papers. Obviously after in the lesson you've kind of gone through some theory of it, you know, you have to know a bit of background, but once you know like the general topic, then you can just go on to exam papers, and that's like the best way to revise, and that's how I pushed my grades. Okay, well, I was predicted an A star, not predicted, I keep saying predicted. I was target graded an A star in maths, but honestly, I don't ever remember being good at maths. That's kind of a lie. I wasn't bad at maths, but I was just a bit like, I thought I was bad mentally, so then I don't know honestly, but I was fine, but I just needed to push myself. And also with maths, because it's all based around past paper questions, it's kind of like when you want to mark your past papers to make sure, obviously, and learn from the past papers, not just do them and not mark them. When you mark them and look at the mark scheme doesn't always explain like why things are the way they are. So that's kind of why I got a tutor. And I got a tutor, I think, only for year 11 from what I remember. I don't think I had it in year 10. I had that because I would basically do all the past papers at home. I wouldn't never do past papers in the class. Maybe once or twice I did a timed one. Maybe I did timed ones towards near to the exam, but at home I'd do like the booklets, because my school would give us like big booklets of past papers, so I would just do that at home and like do as much as I could and finish it, and then I would like highlight the questions I didn't know, then I would bring that to my tutor and go through those. So it was good. It was kind of just like going to my maths teacher but paying for it, which honestly I could have just gone to my teacher, but I mean, it did motivate me to work harder in maths, and it did definitely help me. Like, I definitely improved from that. And obviously, when you get a tutor for anything, like I just had one tutor for maths, but when you have a tutor for anything, make sure that like you're putting the effort too. Like, don't just rely on the tutor to teach you everything. You have to be like a balanced effort of both of you trying to like improve yourselves together. Okay, so now I'm gonna go on to like my changes in revision methods. So in year 10, I was kind of one of those people who were trying to make cute looking notes, and I would put highlight, like, you know, like cute like calligraphy notes which was like obviously nice, and it does kind of motivate you to read and, you know, make notes. But I think I spent too much time like copying down things from textbooks into my notes, because by the end of year 10 I would kind of became exhausted of like just doing notes, that it was just not going into my brain. It just depends on the person, honestly. Like I would make notes, but I think I made notes badly. Like I would make notes to the point where like I was just copying everything down. Like I would have thick paragraphs in my notes. I don't know why. And then I would put so much time into it. Like I would spend hours doing my notes, which I don't know, it depends on the person, but for me it kind of was a waste of time. So then I found new ways to revise. And I also want to highlight that I obviously, from my target grades that I just showed you and my grades that I had in year 10, like I obviously went way beyond that. And even before the exams, like at the end of year 11, I was not predicted all A stars. I think it was like maybe 2 A's and the rest A stars, or 3 A's and the rest A stars, or something like that. I was even expecting B's. Like in the case that I got a B, I wouldn't mind. Like that was my mindset. I remember I was like, okay, if I get a B in something, it's fine. Like a B is good. Okay, I know even a C is good. This sounds kind of bad. This sounds like I'm being a bit fussy, but a C would still be good. Like it's just on your personal, like what you expect of yourself. And I'd already been attaining like A's and A stars mostly, so obviously I expect from myself to stay in like a good range, but it just depends on your grades and whatever you're happy with. Like my priorities and expectations for myself are different from everyone else, and that's really completely fine, and there's nothing wrong. Like I'm not saying that you have to get all A stars to be like a good person in the world or something. Like it honestly isn't that huge of an achievement in the long term of your life, which is why beforehand I never was like, I have to get all A stars, I have to get all this, because when you apply to university, like it's not the make or break. Like you obviously you want to have a good set of A star grades, like yeah, good, like have a good set of them, and good set of them maybe if that contributes to your A level or IB studies or whatever studies you do. Try to get in some kind of good target grades. Just think about the long term things, you know. Like I think for me, definitely, like if I were to have gotten like not all A stars and some A's or maybe B's and something, I don't think it would have like impacted me now terribly. I don't think that personally, but I don't know, it depends on you and whatever you plan to do, obviously. Now I'm going to go through each subject specifically and talk about how I study for each subject. And then I'll go into general advice. This is just each subject I did because I know that it's kind of helpful for other people doing similar subjects. My nails are so ugly right now. Okay, so for geography, it depends as well. Like this obviously depends on the person. I'm just going to speak from my experience. Geography was a subject that I really enjoyed, and I was like, it came quite naturally to me compared to something like, I don't know, maths for example, which I had to like push hard at to actually get to really like understand things. But geography comes quite naturally, and I really find it interesting, so it just comes to me like quite nicely. So for that, I never made notes for geography actually. Like obviously in class I made notes, like when we were actually learning the stuff, but I never did outside like pre-class notes or after class, like, you know, study notes. I never did that. The only thing I did for geography was case study flashcards. Like that was the one thing that I really relied on, because I knew all the theory of the topics quite well and I wasn't too stressed about that. Obviously it depends on you, like it depends on what your weaknesses and strengths are, but my thing was like I had to have the case study details, because there's 7 markers. I don't know if it's different now, but there's 7 markers where you have to have detail in it. And so I would have like this thick thing of like all the case studies. I don't know how many there were. It was a manageable amount to memorize some statistics. So I would have like a flashcard. I don't have an example of it, but okay, let me use this. Okay, so imagine this is the flashcard. So this is like the front of it. So on the front I would do like, like whatever the case study was. So let's give an example. Overpopulation by India. That's just an example of a city overpopulation or something. So I would do that. And then I would maybe include one main fact. So I would do like, 10 million people. I don't know what the population is. I'm just making it up. So I would do that just on the front. So that's what I would see when I was revising. Then on the back of it, there would be bullet points of like different things. So a lot of the time you can organize this into like causes and consequences, basic information, causes, consequences, like different things you need to know. And sometimes in the syllabus, one thing, always have a syllabus when you're studying and base your revision off of the syllabus. Like, plan your revision based on the syllabus points, and that will just like make things so much better. So it would be, maybe in the syllabus it would be like causes and consequences of overpopulation case study or something. So I would do causes, consequences, then have bullet points, and the bullet points would each be like 4 words max, like 4 million people, 1 out of 23 no access to clean water, and then consequences would be like 70% infected with X disease, Y disease, like stuff like that. Just simple facts that I could just try to remember. And then another advice for case studies for geography, like for my experience, I only studied the case studies like a week before the exam or 2 weeks before I will start doing it. I don't bother 1 month before the exam trying to remember all the case studies, because it's just something that is for your short term. It's not for your long term memory. Like, I don't know any of the case studies now. I know the case studies, but I don't remember the facts. Like, maybe I know some like slight things, like places or names of things, but I don't know any of the numbers, and that's really important, the numbers. And those are normally in your short-term memory. So I would say 2 weeks max before the exam, maybe every night you'll go through all the case studies, and you have to actually actively try to remember them. So I would do this. I would have like one thing, and I'd read the front, remember a case study. Then I would try to remember everything that was here. So imagine there's like bullet points. So I'm saying it out loud, and I'm like this. And then maybe there's one thing I can't think of. Then when you really can't think of it, like you're really just on, like, you don't know what it is, then you turn it around and you're like, oh, okay, that, and then you try to remember that. And then you put it to the back of the pile. And so I would have this thick pile, and then once I remembered it, I would move it out of the pile. So then the pile gets smaller and smaller until you remember every single one. It's basically like a Quizlet in a way, but real life. So you can actually do it on Quizlet, but I don't like Quizlet because I don't like Quizlets when there's too much writing on one thing, because I just feel like I can't remember stuff. But Quizlets are good for like key terms, but I wouldn't use it for like case study extensive things, but it depends on you. So that's my main like geography tip. And obviously past paper questions are really good. Also, there's a paper 2 with like skills, I think. I don't know what it's called. I don't know, map skills thing. I don't know if it's still in the test, in the exam, but we never really did that in year 10. Like, we obviously went through some type of skills and questions sometimes, like short ones, but we never did like full papers from what I remember. Like, maybe we did 1 or 2. Maybe we did 1 in year 11, but I don't think we really practiced that. And I was genuinely really terrified about that, because geography, the paper 1 itself, I was like, okay, fine, I like it, I can do it. But paper 2, map skills, I was like, because once we did a practice, and I got like, I think I got like 50% or something, or even lower than that. I don't know, but it was not good, and I was struggling I was struggling during it. I remember when we did like a practice, so I was quite worried about that. But I did do some research online about it and watch some videos, and then my teachers actually did like some sessions about it to give us some advice. Yeah, honestly, for that one, I'd say just try to talk to your teacher about it, because I didn't really do any self-studying for that much. I just watched some YouTube and researched about it, but I didn't really do any practice on my own, because there's a lot of maps and extra stuff you need, which I just didn't have. Or it's kind of nice to look through some example past papers, because you get an idea of the structure and stuff, but I would say that one's more of like talk to your teacher about it. Okay, now I'm going to go on to economics. So these are my main study methods. Okay, well, for econ, I would actually make notes for economics before class. Like, if we're doing a topic about development or economic development, okay, that's an example, I would, before the lesson, maybe the week before, or whenever I had free time beforehand, like after I did all my homework, I would then make notes for topics we were gonna do. So we hadn't studied them, but I'm going through my textbook and online, and I'm like making notes for it beforehand. Not too extensive, just a basic idea of what it is. Because then when you're in class, you can open those notes and you just add to those notes, and you already have an idea of the thing, which I found that really, really helpful. But it always depends on the teacher, because some teachers have different methods where that isn't really a good way to do it. And some teachers don't really like when you make notes and things like that. So it just depends. But that was a really good method for me. Like, just make some brief notes before it, basic ideas, look at the syllabus, look at the main things you need to know, and just, I would say when you make notes like that, make like the headings the same as the specification syllabus points. Like, if it's like be able to define the role of the central bank, like make that a definition, and it's like describe the causes of inflation, make that the title. Like, make it really specific towards the syllabus, because then you won't miss anything. You're covering everything, so you know that you're safe, and you you know that like you're covering all bases essentially. Another thing for econ I did was flashcards. I did loads of flashcards, and flashcards really helped me push my grades above, like push my grades up, because it's really active. It's like doing the case studies, but this is more of a long-term thing. Honestly, I don't know if it's a long-term thing. I don't know if flashcards stay in your long-term memory, but they do stay in a good place in your memory, at the least. Like, they do stay in your memory. So I would do flashcards for each topic. So I'd have like a stack for basic economic problem, stack for government, stack for central bank. Like, I don't even know what I'm saying, but these are just different example topics. So, and then I would literally look at the specification, and each flashcard would link to the line of that specification. Okay, we're gonna look at, I don't like market really. We're gonna look at, okay, we're gonna look at microeconomic decision makers. This is like, there's a main topic. It says money and banking. Okay, well, I would honestly make the flashcards for the big topic, not the subtopic. So I would do microeconomic decision makers flashcard. That's the title of the flashcards. Next one, I would do money, and then it says the forms, functions, and characteristics of money. So I would do one flashcard for the forms of money, one for the functions, one for the characteristics. Then it says the role and importance of central banks and commercial banks for government, producers, and consumers. So I would say what I would do on the front of it, I would say what is the role and importance of central banks for government, and then I'll do what's the importance and role of the central banks for and commercial banks for producers, and then for consumers. Like, you've gotta specify towards the syllabus points and the guidance points that they give you. Make that, like, turn that into a question. So it says, another one, it says, oh, wage and non-wage factors affecting an individual's choice of occupation. So you gotta say on your flashcard, like, what are the wage factors, and then one for what are the non-wage factors. So really specify it to, oh wait, I need my laptop. Really specify it towards the syllabus, because then you won't miss anything. That's what they're gonna base the test on. So when you study that and you know the answer to that point, then obviously you know everything. Don't waste your time trying to learn extra stuff, university level econ, trying to learn it, because that's just really not gonna help, in my opinion. Just try to focus to what you actually need to know, and don't go above and beyond. Even though you might be interested in econ and you're like, oh, like this is, and it's probably gonna give me a good grade. It's not really like that. It's more like that when you move to A-level and IB. But when you're in IGCSE, you really just need the bare minimum of what's on the specification. That's all you really need to know. If you want to know more, go ahead and learn it. But I'm just saying, for me, I was pretty lazy. I was lazy in the sense that I did read a lot, but I didn't read stuff about, I wasn't like reading about economics. I did not do that. Like, I only started doing that when I went on to IB and A-level. IB for me. But yeah, I was lazy. I just focused on, this is all I need to know, so I'm not going to bother with anything else. This is just all I'm going to try to remember. So it's up to you what you want to do. Okay, then I would have flashcards for every economics topic. So for example, I have one set, it's basic economic problem. This is one set of a stack. I'm going through it and I'm, revising. What's this definition? Okay. And then if I didn't know, if I'm saying like, what is the basic economic problem? And I'm like, oh, I don't know it. And I really, really don't know it after trying. Then I put it at the back. But then if I get it and I'm like, okay, it's this, and this, then I put it away from the pack of flashcards, because this is all the stuff I'm working on. I already know this stuff because I remembered it and I said it, and it's just like getting to the bottom. And then once you finish, you don't have any more flashcards to remember, you put it away. And then maybe the next day or 2 days later, you come back to it, and then you should hopefully remember them more easily. So then you get through it quicker. And then once you can get through it, like I would do this until I knew the flashcards off by heart. Like I knew everything, because IGCSE, like you really just have to remember stuff. And there was stuff, I'm just going to be honest here, there was stuff on the syllabus that I didn't really understand as an honest person. Like I did not understand what the topic was. I just remembered the definitions and these things. Like you can get away with stuff like that in some cases. Like if there's like one or two things you're like, I just don't get this, but you know the definitions and you know the words to use in an essay, like, you know, just go ahead and just do that. That's what worked for me. I don't know if it works for everyone. So yeah, I would finish the flashcards. So once I remembered like the topic of flashcards, I was like, okay, I'm done with flashcards. I already know all that stuff. Now I'm going on to this thing called blurting. And this is where you take, I did this still until IB. Take a blank sheet of paper, write the topic in the middle, basic economic problem, put like a bubble around it, and you have a mind map. Then I would, okay, there's two ways you can do it. I normally have the specification up because that doesn't have all the answers on it. It's just like a guidance. So I would use that as a guidance of each mind map line coming out. So I would use that and I'd be like, okay, this is and this. So I'd do a line and write as much as I could remember about that guidance point, because that, the flashcards, so I should know that point because they all match. So then I can write everything on the mind map. Then once I finish the mind map, and I'm not using my notes for this or anything, I'm doing it all from my mind. When I finish it and I'm like, okay, I really can't think of anything else, then I will like get my flashcard and be like, okay, this. Then I'll get like a highlighter and a colored pen and I will like make those points obvious that I didn't remember, because then you really know where you can focus. Like that was such a good method for me. This is like, I swear by this method until now for studying. It's just like, you know what you know and you know what you don't know. It just sets it all out and you can just see it all. You can see like everything in your brain on a paper, and you do that before the exam. Like it just is so, it's really a good method. And another thing, I really relied on the economics textbook, which we had, I think, I don't know, I'll try to get a picture of it, but it was really good. And I honestly kind of just memorized it and based my notes and my flashcards off of this book. And I don't think I really used anything else. Maybe I would research some things on like GCSE websites, but this thing was like, I would really rely on it, and it was so good in my opinion. And I would do practice questions and essays. Oh, always do practice essays. I would do so many of these. I would write so many essays that my teacher didn't have time to mark those. That's all for econ. Now on to English literature. This, okay, English lit / lang, but lang is more like chill in my opinion. I don't even remember was there even an exam for that? I don't remember what the exam was. It's probably some type of, I don't even know if there was an exam for that, so I'm just not going to talk about lang, but...
Okay, so there actually were exams for lang. I don't know why I didn't remember that. I think it's because I did literature for IB, so I just kind of forgot, but there are exams where it's like, I think it's unseen text, and there's like 3 different types or something. For those, my advice is just to do past papers, and get your teacher to mark them. Just do a lot of past papers for that, because that's the only thing you can really do in my opinion. And like be aware of different text types and things like that. That's all I would really say.
Literature. Okay, so for English, I was always really like targeted. I was always getting B's, and I'd sometimes get an A or an A star, but that was like kind of rare. I remember I always would be like, I would kind of be mad because I really did like the subject, but I could just never push myself into like A star categories. So this is what I did for English literature. All the books we studied, I would like really get to know the book. Like I would research about the book. I would look up all different types of YouTube videos about the books and different analyses about the books. Different, like I would look at, you know, the stuff you can find like Spark Notes, stuff like that. Like, but I wouldn't just look at one source. I'd look at all different ones, and then I would always type this. For each book we did, I would always type up a summary of the book in like bullet points. I'd do like chapter 1, this happens. Chapter 2, this happens. I would do that for the whole book, so I could just always have that to go back to if I just needed to know like what happens in the book, and it's just really easy to go back to. And then I would have another set of notes of just analysis points and like themes, just a whole document of just like all these things and ideas that I come across when I'm studying the book. And then you kind of have everything there. And then when it came near to the exam, I'd print those. So for each text, print that, I'd print the summary, and I'd print all the notes and themes and analysis points I had. And then I'll read through all of them, and I'll highlight stuff that was important or that I couldn't really remember or that I thought was really useful. So I'd highlight stuff, and then that would give me a good idea of the book. And then I would like, okay, and then for poems, we got like poem booklets of every poem, and then we would like annotate it from that. So I would just use that, to be honest. And I would remember the annotations. So we had this booklet, and each page I would have so many annotations and themes and ideas around it, and I would go through that book so many times that I remembered the stuff, and I was like, if I came across this in the exam, I would discuss this and this. Like, I would just remember. I don't know how, but I remembered those annotations, and that helped me to like remember everything I wanted to say if it came up in the exam. Okay, so then after I have all these like detailed notes about everything, and I know the text, and I know the themes, and I know what I could discuss, I know the characters, all this stuff, then I go on to past paper questions. And you could also always ask your teacher for like example questions that they might have for this specific book or thing, or from the past they could give you. Like, there's always some way to find some type of essay questions and themes that could be brought up in the exam. Like, you can get those from your teacher or just online. So then I would make mind maps. I would have like hundreds of mind maps of essay plans. So I would write down, if the question, okay, I'm going to do an example of what's the book, Cry the Beloved Country. Let's just do an example. Relationship between Gertrude and Kamalo. I don't really remember. I think Gertrude is Kamalo's sister. So yeah, I would do like, oh, what is the relationship between X and a Y character? Then I would literally mind map every idea I had, and I just did what I could think of. Then I would maybe look at the notes and add stuff. And then I had all these essay plans for like every single theme I could think that would come up, every single question that could come up. Then I had the stack. So then before the exam, I'd go through it, and I would look at the middle, and I would think this question, and then I would think, oh, what could I discuss? Then I would try to remember everything. Then I would look at the ideas I wrote, and then it would like reconfirm it. I don't know if this makes sense, but that was really good and helpful for me. Also, reading outside of class, like just reading fiction books outside of class, is so helpful, because you're just used to reading and absorbing stuff, and like, it's a good skill to have, like being able to read and comprehend things and read different types of things. That like skill of, maybe if you come across an unseen text, you can just go and dive into it and everything. Okay, now I'm gonna go on to Spanish and language in general. Spanish, I honestly did not really revise. I would only do Quizlets of key terms. So I would literally search like IGCSE Spanish key terms. Maybe I would search a specific topic, and I would just go through Quizlets until I knew every single word in it, and I would do that for loads of different topics. And I didn't really put pressure on that. I just did as much as I could. I would listen to podcasts of Duolingo for listening exams, because that's really helpful. And I would do some practice reading and writing, but I would really just do that in class. I didn't really study much for Spanish, to be completely honest. And I didn't think I was actually going to get an A-star, because I found the listening really difficult. But okay, finally for art, I did graphic communication. Honestly, I did put loads of effort into this, because I'm quite creative. I like to be creative. I like to make aesthetically pleasing things, and I like to, you know, make cool things. But I'm not like a professional artist. I'm not amazing at art. I'm not like a painter or anything, but I am quite creative when I want to be. I did work really hard for it, and I did lots of extra work outside of school. I had painting classes, which honestly was so relaxing. Like, I found art quite a relaxing subject and quite fun. It could be stressful at times, because there's quite a bit of extra work to do outside of class sometimes, because you make up this portfolio, and you know, you kind of need extra time for stuff like that. So it was actually really relaxing to balance out the kind of more like memory based subjects with like this really creative thing. So I did honestly enjoy it, and it was relaxing. But teachers should have a criteria of how to get like a 8 or 9 if you want to get that, or a 7, whatever you want to get. I was aiming for a 7, to be honest. And just try to follow that stuff, like whatever they give you, and just ask them and just communicate with them, because art's kind of a subject where like you just have to talk to your teacher about it. It's really like everyone's portfolio and work is going to be different, so it just depends on you, kind of. I did actually, to be fair, put lots of effort into art, and I think that's why I got an A-star, because my portfolio was like packed of stuff, because I did enjoy making portfolio things, and I like doing art, I like being creative, so it was quite a nice thing in some ways. I'm going on to maths. This video is going to be an hour long, I swear. Okay, so maths, I would just say past papers. Once you're in class and you know the topic, just go straight on to past papers and do as many as you can. Honestly, as many as you can. That's what I did, and I got a tutor because I just sometimes needed help on extra questions. like questions that I did a past paper on, but and even though I marked it, I still couldn't get it. Like, you know, just those extra like final little pieces of the puzzle. Like I wasn't bad at maths. I would, for example, do a past paper question and I'd get 70%, 75%, 80%, something like that, 60%, like in that range. But I wanted to push for like until I could get maybe a safe 90. Like I could aim for that, because then you know you're in a safer place kind of when you do the exam. So I just wanted to fix those tiny things, like those marks that I was missing kind of. So in year 10 I didn't have a tutor, but in year 11 when I knew my weaknesses, then I did. So it depends on you. Then finally for science is quite a hefty like area for studying. I had flashcards for biology, for chemistry, physics. I don't think I really did it too much. I think physics I did more past paper heavy stuff, but biology and chemistry, it was a lot of memory type stuff. So I would again look at the syllabus, use the syllabus point as the name of each flashcard, and you know, allocate each flashcard to a syllabus point or something like that. That was really good, and that really helped me push my grades up. I would also usually go through the topics before class. So for example, physics, we're going to learn about, okay, I don't want to talk about physics. Biology, we're going to learn about homeostasis. Before the lesson, maybe the weekend before or the week before, if I had time when I wasn't doing homework, I would get the textbook open, or I would watch a YouTube video. I would always watch Science with Hazel Queen videos, but I don't know if I'd use that for notes, but anyway. Yeah, so I'd get a textbook, I would get maybe videos on YouTube. There's really good videos on YouTube sometimes. Oh, what's that guy's name? The science guy or something? Try to link it or something like that. But yeah, so yeah, I would watch those. I would make notes from the textbook. I wouldn't try to copy the textbook. I would just try to make brief notes on each syllabus point. Again, using the syllabus point as a guide for my notes. And then I would just do brief notes before class, just so I have an idea of what this is. Even sometimes I remember I really wouldn't understand what it was, like especially even homeostasis. I was like, I just don't get this. Like the kidney stuff, I didn't get it when I was doing notes at home, but I just tried to make notes. Like I would just try to get a brief idea of it. Then when I came into class and we did the topic that day, my teacher would be talking about the topic and I would have my notes already, so I had an idea of it already. So I was like piecing together this topic from what I kind of already know and what my teacher's telling me, and I could ask stuff and fill in different parts, you know. So that was really good for me. It doesn't work for everyone, but that was my method. Yeah, and then I would always do flashcards for bio and chemistry, not really physics. Blurting, again, that thing I talked about for economics, where you have a blank sheet and you just write everything about one topic and you use the specification syllabus as a guide to like each point. So you're like, oh, define homeostasis, and you do that. Describe the factors of, describe vasoconstriction, I don't even know what it's called, and do that. Describe the causes of coronary, I don't know, something like that. You know, it's just a really good way. And then by the time you're done, you write everything you know. You look at the textbook, you write the stuff you didn't know. That's my way. Like my thing was like, I would have the syllabus points and I would tick off and I would highlight stuff that I knew and stuff I didn't know, especially right before the exam. I'll get onto that later. Past paper questions as well for the sciences is so important. Like I wouldn't have been able to get an A star or whatever 9s in these subjects if I didn't do so many past paper questions. Like I knew some past papers off by heart. Like if someone was like, oh, the May 2010, I would maybe even know the questions from that because I had done it and I'd like looked through it so many times. Like you don't just do a past paper and mark it, you have to like keep it, and that's actually your revision. Like keep them all together, and then when you get to revision, look through them before the exam. Like just, it's so helpful. It really helps. It's so good. Okay, that's all for each of the subjects. That was really long. It's been 45 minutes. Next is how I would time my revision and how I'd plan my revision. In year 10, I honestly wasn't really good at planning. I can get my calendar up here. I use Google Calendar, not Google, Apple whatever calendar, the one that's on the Apple MacBook. And I've used this since year 10. And okay, so let's look at how I planned. So this is how I didn't, okay, so I would just say, if this is October 2017, I would say revise for econ, revise for Spanish, revise for geo, revise for bio, revise for chemistry. I wouldn't put specific topics. That was inefficient and that wasn't good. I would just say revise for this subject, revise for that subject. And I wasn't really, it's quite sparse. Like when I'm looking at this, it's not much. Moving on, I'm getting into 2018, you know, moving on through year 10. Okay, now I'm doing more specific physics notes, complete geo coursework, Spanish, chemistry notes, economics homework, English homework, but I'm still writing revised geography, revised English, nothing specific. Okay, then I start to move on to more specific. I wrote one note saying chemical changes, chemistry notes, biorevision, respiration systems, English, I don't know what that is. Okay, then I'm saying chemistry, Quizlets, that's kind of still not really specific, geography, coasts, and population revision. So I'm getting more specific, and that was, okay, so that's all of year 10. Like, I'm not really focused, as you can tell from that, I wasn't really that planned and organized. Okay, then we move on to year 11 starts. I'm already starting with air and metals review and flashcards. So I'm specific, I'm making flashcards. Because honestly, from the summer between year 10 and 11, I was like, okay, for everything I just studied in year 10, I need to have all the revision stuff ready now. And it was only at the end of year 10 that I was like, okay, I really like flashcards, so I'm going to make them for every single subject. Not every single one, like econ, bio, chemistry, and that's it. I think that was it. Yeah, I think that was it. Maybe physics a little bit, but I don't really think physics, because physics isn't really like a memory thing. It's more of like a exam thing. So I would have three of those. I was like, okay, I'm going to make all the flashcards for everything I learned already. Then as soon as year 11 starts, I'm like doing as many flashcards as I can for the new topics coming up, like what we're currently learning, so I can have them all and I feel fine, and I know that when I study, I have them there, I can take it and I can do it. And you got to make them good. So I'm getting more specific with my revision. I'm saying, oh my gosh, what am I saying? Physics formula review for 1 hour. Okay. Now I'm moving on to timed. Oh my gosh, this is actually really good. I didn't do this in IB, which is kind of bad because I just got kind of lazy. To be honest, I have been quite lazy in the IB, but I still really worked hard. But this was like peak. I'm working smarter, not harder. In year 10, I would work for hours, like 2 hours I'd study, and I wouldn't really learn. Now, listen to this. Wednesday, 7th of November 2018, biology review, 45 minutes, poems review, 45 minutes, geography, natural environment, past paper questions, 1 hour, maths past paper questions, read. I didn't do a time for that one, but as you can see, I'm timing. I'm doing case studies 1 hour, maths questions 1 hour, geography review 45 minutes, economics flashcards 45 minutes, chemistry revision 2 hours with breaks. So I'm getting kind of cool with the revision, like I'm getting really planned out. Physics revision 1 hour and a half. So this was actually right before mocks, like I started revising for mocks 4/3 weeks before, and I would only do in one day, I think maximum 4 hours. Maybe that's a lot, maybe that's not a lot, but I would split it into 45 minutes this, 30 minutes this, 30 minutes this, 1 hour this. That was so effective. I remember that was so effective. For me, that was so effective. I didn't even have to work that hard. Like, I'm being honest, I didn't have to work that hard because I knew what I was going to do. Got it done in this amount of time. Done. So that was really good. That was a really good way for me to study. Okay, yeah, so that was until mocks. Okay, so let's move on to a little bit of a detail here. When I did my mock exams in November of year 11, so this was like the mock before the actual thing, like the final mock before real exams that were coming in May, I worked so hard. Like, I worked really hard on that, and I think if I didn't work as hard as I did on that, I wouldn't have gotten all I started in the end, because I worked so hard on that November mock that my workload decreased when it came to the real ones, because I already knew like 80% of the content I was so like confident with, and I did fairly well on the mock. I think I got all A*/A's, and I think on sciences I got all 9s on that mock, because I really was like, I don't even know. Honestly, when I think about it, I don't know why I got all A*, because I don't remember being like, it kind of just happened in a way, and I did really work hard. Like, my main tips is like, look at the specification, learn every single point on there, do past paper questions. Like, those are my 2 like things. If you want to take away anything, take them, because those 2 are so important. Okay, so because I worked so hard on those mocks, I remember from when those were done, like, I don't know, November, end of November onwards, until like March, which was 2 months before exams, or 1 month before exams, I don't know. For those months, I was on like a crash. Like I didn't stop working. I was still working, but I was quite relaxed and like chill. And I was actually, I think in some ways it wasn't that good for me to work so hard for those marks, because mentally it was kind of a big strain, and I kind of dealt with a bit of like mental health struggles during that time because I was so like, but I'm thankful for the hard work that it put. But I'm also kind of like, that was kind of insane. Kind of paid off, but it also wasn't, I've never done that again since, like until the throughout the IPA, I don't think I've ever been like that pressured with myself. I've cried, but I haven't gone to that much pressure. I started studying for the exams in end of March. I think it was April. Honestly, yes, April. And the exams were the next month. So I started studying for 1 month. I don't know if that's good or bad, but that's what I did. And it worked for me because I already studied so hard for the marks that I knew a lot of the things in my brain. Like I had so much, I could probably remember the specification in my head. Like if I looked at the specification for biology, I'd go through each point and then I could like remember it. Like I knew it back to front. I knew the specification back to front, and that was so good. For all of my subjects, I knew the specification. I knew what I needed to know, and I felt confident with that. Like once you know that you can tick off things on a syllabus point, you don't have to worry because you know everything that could possibly come up. And that's like all I did. Like I did the bare minimum of just that. Like that's all you really have to do. During the exams, like I don't really study hardcore. I don't really do past papers because I've done as much as I can. I don't make notes. I'm just reviewing stuff. I'm not trying to remember anything new essentially, except for case studies and maybe a bit of English stuff. But other than that, I'm not really cramming. I never cram. I do not cram, and I can't cram. I'm going on to my general tips. Print the syllabus and the specification, as I mentioned. Always base your revision around this. Like your flashcards and your notes, base them around the syllabus. That is such good advice, like for anyone. That's my main advice. That's what pushed me into good grades, honestly. Because before that, you don't really know what you need to know. Like if you don't have the syllabus, you don't really know what you do and do not need to know. You could be studying stuff that isn't even going to come up, you know. Next one, pace yourself and try to keep a healthy balance. Keep your friends and sports and extracurriculars, creative stuff in your life. Self-care, sleep, eat, get lots of sleep. I did get a lot of sleep despite my mental health struggles. I did sleep a lot. I would sleep fairly early. Well, in year 11, in year 10, I actually did sleep like a good amount, but I wasn't like actively trying to sleep a lot. But in year 11, I did get a lot of sleep. I think I'll sleep at like 8 or 9 every night, which is really good. I didn't do that in IB. So I wrote here, my mental health kind of got destroyed at mocks, but I took a long break before the real exams, and then I did well. So I had to take that break. If I didn't take that break after mocks, because I did well on mocks, and I didn't have any reason to grind after that, because until exams, obviously, because I'd done well, and I was like, okay, I worked so hard, I put all my effort into these mocks, and I chilled for a bit, and I didn't really do that much, and then when 2 months before exams, I then started to pick up the pace. But it depends on the person. If you don't do as well on your mocks, then you got to start working hard. So that kind of is a good thing about your mocks, because I put so much effort into those November mocks. It came to May, I didn't need to stress myself out too much. Next one, don't waste your time making notes if it's not necessary. Do it if you need to. See what works for you. It worked for me to make brief notes before some classes for sciences, economics, nothing else, just to know the topic beforehand, and then when I was in class I could pick up on new things and add stuff to the notes. That was what worked for me. It doesn't work for everyone. Active recall, blurting, like I mentioned, writing mind maps of the topic, writing everything you know, using a different pen after you've written everything, adding in extra stuff, flashcards, Quizlet, stuff that you have to think is so good. I always rely on that until this day. Past paper questions when you're ready. Once you've done all the active recall and you know the topics by heart, you know the specification, you know what you need to know, then you go on to past papers and you just do it. You grind through the past papers, through every single one you can find, literally every single one you can find. Do it, keep doing it, mark them. Don't just do them and not mark them. Mark them and make a memory of those marks you've made. And if there's something, a question that keeps coming up again and again on different years, make note of that and think it's a pattern, because it's really just different patterns in these exams. Like IGCSE, doing class papers, it just taught me these the patterns of types of questions and the types of answers they want from looking at the mark scheme. Like that is so important. Know your weaknesses and your strengths. I would always make lists. So I would make a general list of each subject from what I was most to least worried about. Most would usually be maths and economics, because economics sometimes I found kind of difficult. Even though I was good at it, it could be difficult. Those were like usually at the top, and then at the bottom it'd be like maybe geography and Spanish, for example. Ones I didn't really have to worry about too much, but I did work hard at. And that was a general thing. And then within each one, I would write each of the main topics in each subject. Like for biology, I'd write all the topics in order of like what am I most worried about to least worried about, and I would do it in that order. But it obviously depends on you and however you want to do it. But that is a really good way. Start from what you don't know. Actually, sometimes I like to start from what I do know, so that I know I have ample time to do the stuff I don't know. Because sometimes when you start with what you don't know, you don't waste time, but you then, after doing so much hard stuff, you have to go on to this other kind of easier stuff that's just kind of like ugh. So sometimes when you do the easier stuff, it's kind of better, but it depends on you. Revise differently for different subjects. Not every subject is gonna go the same for revision. Like it's just not the same for every subject. Teach the content to others. This was so important for me. Like, okay, for sciences especially, and economics. If you have friends in your classes, like take advantage. But I never really studied with other people. I might have done it 5 times maximum throughout the whole of GCSEs. I went to see my friends to study, but I never really did anything more than that, from what I remember. But before, okay, so this is a really interesting story, and it's not really a revision technique, but it could be. I don't know. It kind of is. Well, if you have, for example, a topic test sometime in the year, a little topic test, not anything too important, before that test, sometimes you study with your friends. Try to teach them what you know. That is such an important thing. If you can teach other people about a topic, and it's correct, obviously, that means you know the topic. Like, it's active recall again. So this is something kind of interesting. Not interesting, like funny. But before all of our science exams, I had this one friend who I would teach the syllabus to. Each of the subjects, like let's give an example. For chemistry, I printed the whole syllabus because I always did that. Or I'd get it online on the computer, and it would be like a few pages, 5-6 pages of different syllabus points for every single topic. Before the exam, I'd come into school maybe 2 hours before the exam, 1 hour before the exam, and then I'd come up to meet my friend because she kind of wanted help for some topics, but then I was like, I'm just going to teach the whole thing. And on the day of the exam, I don't study. Like, I didn't study that day, but then I was like, why not just go through it? And I wasn't doing detailed, and I wasn't worrying, but I would go through the whole syllabus and I would teach her every single point and everything about every single point, and I would know like the questions they would ask about it, and I would say, oh, this is this, and sometimes they ask you about this, so say that. Like now I don't remember that, but that time I was like, I knew, like I was in the examiner's head. You gotta get in the examiner's head, like you gotta get in their perspective of like them marking it. What do they want to hear? What do they want? Like, look at the mark scheme, look at the specification. Okay, so yeah. Okay, next one, do your homework to your best ability. Like, when you get homework, do it properly. Like, do it. And listen to the feedback you get. Be attentive to your feedback. Use it wisely. And, you know, just try to put effort into your homework. I would never have homework when I got home, because I would do it in class, honestly. Sometimes, because when you're at IGCSE, it's not strenuous. If you think about it, it's not strenuous. Unless you have like kind of crazy teachers, which isn't normally the case, but it is not strenuous compared to when you get to A-level IB. I would sometimes in class, because I kind of can get through stuff fairly quickly if I'm focused enough and like I'm not getting distracted. I'll do it, and then there'll be homework the teacher sets during class, and then I'll just start the homework in class, because like, why not? Then I get it done in class, and then when I get home I can just revise and I can just relax. Try to take advantage of stuff like that, because it really does pay off. It really, really does pay off, especially if you're doing sports. I did sports, and you know, it just helps. Next one, revision breaks, so important. Don't revise for 4 hours straight sitting at a desk. maybe split it up. And I know it can be difficult, but do like, oh, I'm gonna do 30 minutes of this specific topic. Do that, get a little snack, try not to delay the snack, or just have a little drink of water, go watch a YouTube video, and be disciplined with it. Don't like go on a whole thing. But I actually did that. I would go on a break and it would end up being the whole day. But you know, try to be strict with yourself, but obviously give yourself the breaks you need. If your brain feels like you can't take in anything else, I remember I would revise for before an exam, and then I would kind of be nearing the end of my revision, and I would be kind of getting through everything I needed to. Then I would kind of be considering, oh, maybe I could do that other thing, and I would try to do more work, but my brain could not take any information anymore. So then you just gotta stop and you just gotta go rest, because that when you know your brain is like too much, there's too much in the brain, and it's just you're not taking anything in, you have to stop and just go do something else. For me, I would never work late at night. And actually sometimes nearing the exams, I'd wake up a bit early in the morning, like 30 minutes earlier. I would revise for those 30 minutes in the morning. It kind of did help, because apparently you're more receptive at the time, but I don't really know if that's true. Okay, I didn't wake up at like 4 a.m. I woke up at like 5:30, and I'll do like 30 minutes of like going through notes. I sometimes do that on the day, but I don't like to revise on the day too much, because it can like mess you up a bit and make you, it can skew the way you like think in some ways, but it depends on you. Sleep, get enough sleep, do whatever you need to. I remember some exams I didn't sleep enough and I'd have to drink coffee. I don't drink coffee, and it would make me kind of like Lastly, last tip here, no, not last tip, second last tip. If you want to get all A stars, I never wanted to get, okay, obviously I wanted to get all A stars, but I never demanded myself to get it. I never was like, if I don't get all A stars, I'm gonna be a failure. Like, I was happy with just getting content, like passing good grades, you know, working as hard as I could, getting as good as I can. Obviously I hoped for the A's and the A stars. That was my like what my teachers said. So obviously I want to work towards that, but my teachers never said like all A stars for my target grade. So I was like, okay, so if you really want to get all A stars, like you really want it, and that's okay if you want it, but just remember that it's not going to change your whole life. Like, it's not this like life-changing thing. It's a good achievement, it's really nice, and it feels great, because I know I put in all that hard work and it paid off, and obviously it paid off from my grades, so I feel proud about that. But just make sure you actually want it, and make sure like it's what you really want. And don't do it for other people. No one around me ever put pressure on me to get all A stars, honestly. My parents are not like that. Teachers weren't really like that. They wanted me to do well, but they didn't pressure me at all. So just, you know, be wise. Lastly, at the end of the day, again, you do not need to get all A stars to be successful in life, obviously. Just try your best, and as long as you try your best and you really put in the effort to everything, be attentive, listen to feedback and everything like that, you won't regret anything. Because I know I put all my best effort into it, so I don't regret anything, and the results could have come out anyway, but I know I put in the hard work, so I felt good about that, and that's all. So that's the whole video, and I'm honestly sweating because I've been sitting here, and I put the AC off because it was kind of loud, and I've been filming for 1 hour. I'll link some helpful stuff down below and ask some questions. If anyone wants to ask questions, just comment the questions and I'll answer them whenever. Thanks.